thank you for joining us for the brief of Do Not Go Gentle by Patricia Cornelius. My name is Saffron Benner. I'm Head of Artistic Development here at Queensland Theatre Company. And it's my pleasure to welcome you and also acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're gathered here today, the Yuggera and the Turrbal people. Would you please welcome the cast and creatives of Do Not Go Gentle?
Well, a very distinguished cast and creative team tonight.
Everybody, we might just quickly go along the line, and rather than me trying to remember who everyone is and what they do, we might get you to just introduce yourselves if we can share the microphone. We'll start here with Jo.
Hello, I'm Jo Loth and I'm the movement director.
Hi, I'm Alan John. I'm the composer.
Hello, I'm Julian Starr and I'm the sound designer.
I'm Simone Romanyuk and I'm the set and costume designer.
Good evening, I'm Heather Fairbairn and I'm the director.
Hello, I'm William Zappa and I play Scott with 2 T's.
Hello, I'm Kate Wilson. I'm the assistant director and the understudy.
Hello. And who am I? Marilyn Richardson and I sing Maria.
Oh, thank you. I'm Stephen Grives. I play Evans and Scott with 1 T.
Hello, my name is Bruce Spence and I'm playing Oates.
My name is Andrew Buchanan and I'm playing 4 roles in this play, but one of them is interestingly called The Man-Beast.
My name is David Walters and I'm the lighting designer.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Flowers and I'm playing Mary and Wilson.
Hi, my name is Kristen O'Leary and I'm playing Bowers, aka Claudia.
So we have a range of experience here and a range of people, some making their debut with Queensland Theatre and some who made their debut quite some time ago. Can you raise your hand if this is your debut with Queensland Theatre? Okay. Not their professional debut, obviously, just Queensland Theatre. Can we take a guess? Does anyone want to guess who here has had their debut the oldest? Who debuted first, do we think? Jennifer, we're batting for Jennifer. Jennifer, what year did you debut? Yeah, but what year did you debut?
I wish I'd had notice of this. I don't remember.
You don't remember, Kate? Do you remember your year that you debuted?
I do. It was 1972.
Which was the year after I was born, so... Yeah, well, I don't get the chance to be younger very often, so... Okay. As we get older, I think sometimes it takes a little bit of time for our brains to catch up with our bodies. My brain often pretends that I'm still 30-something, and then my body reminds me that I'm not. Can we go along? You don't have to tell me how old you are, but can we go back along and can you tell me how old do you feel? Have we got a microphone to share? Go along. How old do you feel?
My age, which is 52.
I often feel about 18 in my head.
That's what I'm talking about.
21.
I feel my age, but I'm not going to say what it is.
It's fine, you don't have to.
I feel 27 now, I'm not, by the way, older than I look, but at the end of tech, I'm expecting that to be more like 67.
28.
Perfect.
25.
I try not to think about it.
Oh.
I prefer not to answer.
Depends on the day. How old do you feel?
I feel my age.
Okay, fair call. Today.
I do feel my age, and I'm not worried about keeping it a secret or not. I'm 81 next month.
Fantastic.
15.
15, and you still look 15, Andrew.
I'm with Alan. I feel I'm 18.
And me.
Fantastic.
I definitely don't feel 18. I'm about to turn 60 this year, but I don't know if I feel that, and I certainly don't feel 18. I certainly don't feel 27. I don't know what I feel.
Well, no one looks a day over 35, if you ask me, so we're all good. Okay, so this is a play in part about ageing. Heather, would you like to just briefly... Can we pass the microphone down to Heather? Do you mind? This way. Do you mind explaining just briefly the story of Do Not Go Gentle? What is this play about?
Absolutely. So in the first instance, well, it's good to know that there are multiple layers, multiple narratives woven throughout this piece. We've got an incredible cast who are playing a plethora of characters, and every one of them has their own story, their own individual journey that they are on. However, it appears as though the story is about Scott on his Antarctic expedition, hence all the white in here, on his Antarctic expedition, his thwarted expedition, one that started with hope. So the first act, the first half of the show is very much filled with his hope and the expectation of the win. And then the second half of the show is in the face of the failure and how one keeps putting one foot in front of the other. It's about persistence and resistance and keeping on, raging into that good night, even in the face of failure. But then within that, there are multiple other layers as well. And I guess it's how many spoilers do we want to give away?
So the play effectively takes place, I would say, across two different realities, one of which is Scott's expedition to the Antarctic, the second expedition particularly, which was considered a failure. And it also takes place in an aged care facility. So there's two realities happening at the same time. I don't think that's giving away too many plot spoilers, Iris. Have I ruined it for everybody? I don't think that's too much to give away.
I think maybe it's how we reveal that second layer of narrative that we might not give away.
I should say that this is one of my favourite plays. It's very beautiful, it's very theatrical, it's beautifully poetic, but also really poignant and very real. It's very grounded in the reality of the experience of the characters, I would have to say. What do you think this play has to show us about ageing? What is it? I might ask. Well, I'm going to ask. I'll ask someone individually, but then I'm happy for anyone to weigh in when they're ready. Kristen, what do you think the play has to show us about ageing? What can we learn? What have you learnt about ageing? What do you think it can tell us about ageing and growing older?
Oh, that's a tricky question for me to answer from the role I'm playing, because you might wonder why there is someone generally not very elderly in this mix. I'm playing somebody who in Scott's team was the youngest in his team. He was 28 and most of the people in his team were in their 30s and 40s. And Claudia, who is my real person, is 52 and she is in an aged care facility because she has early onset dementia. So it's tricky for me to say, what does this play tell us about ageing? I think what it has given me about ageing, and I would answer that through having seen my parents age and lose my parents. I lost my mother to dementia. I lost my aunt to dementia, my grandmother to dementia. It has shown me and reminded me that there is dignity and there is worth in a life, however compromised, to the very, very, very last breath. To me, that's why this work is most important, and that there is fight in the human spirit to the very end, no matter what we are afflicted with.
Yeah, beautiful, thank you. Does anybody else want to add anything about what the play has to say about ageing?
I'll say something as the eldest. There's a lot of different sort of narrative streams going through the play, but one of the major streams is a lot of the older characters have, when they reach the end of their days, you know, those last, not the real end, but when they're reaching, when they can see the end coming up, what comes into their mind, and I think it happens to all of us at that age, they have regrets, they have unfulfilled dreams, unfulfilled sort of desires, and as they get closer, they are desperate to fulfill those or to reach some sort of resolution. And that's really essentially what many of the characters are going through, to find some sort of resolution to all their guilt or their unfulfilled desires.
Yeah, I think it's important. One of the things that I think is most fabulous about this play is, although it feels like it's about something very depressing, it's not a depressing play. Or I don't see it as. I see it as a very beautiful play, a very uplifting play, because it is about dignity and fighting to the very end, and striving, continuing to strive for life and for enjoyment and pleasure in life for as long as you can. It's not about. I know it sounds a bit depressing and a bit scary. It's not. It's really beautiful and uplifting, and often very funny as well. They've all nodded, so that's true.
No, it's very funny.
It is very funny. Kate, you've been to the Antarctic?
I have,
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Kate's also written a really beautiful article about her experience, which is on our website at the moment if you'd like to read it in more detail. But maybe you can just share with us a little bit about what that was like going to the Antarctic. What struck you most about that journey? What stays with you now? And do you feel that it's a resonant metaphor in the play?
Yes, I do think it's a resonant metaphor. I was struck by the absolute beauty of Antarctica. It was something, it was the closest for me that it must be like to be on another world or another planet, because nothing seemed familiar. Everything was different. The quality of the light, the whiteness, the ice, which was beautiful, the penguins, of course, which are the cutest things you've ever seen. And as I do recall one day being separated a little from the group that I was with on shore, and I looked around and there was nothing but just white and the ocean. And I felt so dislocated and so disoriented in that moment. And Patricia Cornelius, the playwright, has taken that polar dislocation as a metaphor for the dislocation that people who are suffering from dementia go through. So for me, I understand absolutely what she's done with that in the play. No, not everyone does, but a lot of the characters in the play do. And dementia is something that affects nearly 500,000 Australians at the moment, and many, many more who are caring for them. So, you know, it is something. Here's a play that is looking at the dignity of old age, whether or not, you know, you are suffering from that awful disease, and saying that there is friendship and endurance and laughter at the end. It's not the end. For some of the characters in this play, it's actually the beginning of something rather beautiful. But you'll have to come and see it to find out what that is.
That's true. Simone and Heather, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how this world reflects that landscape, that polar landscape, and also the metaphorical landscape of the play, the landscape of the mind. How did you come to this extraordinary set?
In our early conversations, we identified that as well as dealing with topics of aging, the piece very much also deals with imagination, particularly the solace that one at any age can find in imagination. And so we wanted to create quite a blank canvas here for you all to be able to write your imagination and almost illustrate the scenery, the environment, the relationships Patricia's writing is so wonderfully evocative and illustrative that we almost didn't need to double up on that with trying to do replicas of icebergs or what have you. So we've got quite a blank canvas for you to hear the poetry of the landscape that Patricia so eloquently offers you, and to imagine that for yourself, much like the characters in the play are imagining it for themselves, because essentially it's a fantasy that they're in. So we went on a process of stripping elements right back, essentially, to elicit the audience's imagination. Something else that was quite integral to the piece was the expansiveness. So when I was reading accounts of the Antarctic, it struck me that there's this really quite oppressive enormity to it, both horizontally and vertically. So that's why we've got these mirrors here to try to create this infinity effect, so that at one point in the piece you can almost see the set reflected in on itself. And so horizontally it just goes on to try to do something of operatic scale in a small scale corner theatre is no mean feat. And so that was one of our design challenges, to try to make it feel as big as possible. And that then is contrasted with the equally as oppressive but very different quality of the claustrophobia of a tent. So we oscillate from really sweeping large pictures, these landscapes, to these really quite intimate pictures as well. I could keep going, but would you like to jump in and say something?
Because of the nature of the writing of the play, we were looking at the suggestion all the time. So it's a very suggestive world. So you'll see these shark's tooth gauze sails behind us. And, you know, they can be sails, they can be bed sheets, they can be snow, they can be mountain peaks. And it's just all about what someone might see when they're looking at these things through a half light. Similarly, looking at the mirror, is what they're looking at real, or is it a reflection, or is it slightly distorted? So it's playing with all those perceptions, both in terms of the explorer metaphor, the ageing, and potentially dementia, people having different conversations, not quite understanding what each other might mean, but very much on their own journey. So we're really drawing a lot of different strands together to bring the design together in this way.
Fantastic. I have to say that I'm going to pick up on the fact that there is something operatic about this play. There is literally something operatic in this play. In fact, there are a couple of two very famous arias. Marilyn, you're our opera singer for this production. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what those arias are? And what is it about this play that makes it, are there similarities with this play and opera? What makes this play operatic, do you think?
No, not real similarities, because I mean, she's a character who, like most of the others, lives in a world of her own, which doesn't belong to the real world. So we disappear into our own worlds, and her world is obviously the world of music. But the way the playwright has written it makes her separate on many occasions, in that she just gets up and sings. Now, Patricia, I believe, has been asked why she chose the particular pieces that she's designated. And she said, no particular reason, I just like them. So that was a little bit alarming. I was trying to read some message into what she'd chosen. So therefore, my character just gets up and sings things at different times. It's a bit of a stretch in that sometimes you haven't warmed up and you just, well, I mean, you warm up by speaking and you hope that that's going to suffice. And at my age, you sort of hope that a few other things, you know, crossed fingers can work magic maybe. But it is a very human play. I have a 96-year-old brother at the moment who has been in a unit, dementia unit, for 18 months now. And it's always unreal. There's a lot of silence, unlike the play. There's a lot of people who just are drifting around in and out of reality, as we all know that it must be. So we drift with them and we feel with them, but the humanity runs deep, and I think that's what's really impressive. And the singing is just by the way.
Fantastic. So you're going to get comedy, drama, and opera. That's 3 forms in the one play. You can't go wrong. I'm really interested in picking up on that idea about the use of sound. So perhaps some of the lighting and sound creatives could share with us about how sound and lighting are also really foundational in building this world, because you can see it's not a realistic set, it's a representational and symbolic set. So could you share with us how sound and music and lighting help create this world?
Yeah, the sound world is, again, when we move into space, it's going to be quite immersive for the audience and following the journey of these characters. And Heather and I have worked on a number of shows together here in Australia, and we kind of have a great shorthand where we utilise a lot of abstract synths in our productions, and that's something that I'm kind of really running with on this show, because again, with the characters, where their minds go, what is that sound and that abstract world, and just creating all of those soundscapes and those themes for those characters. And with it being so operatic, we can go really quite loud in this theatre, then also strip it back and just going down to one note and just making it so silent, and, you know, following Scott's journey, and then where does that journey go with sound. So there's a real storytelling there and what we're doing. And again, working with Alan, the composer, and with the operatic scores and making them larger in life, and then using Alan's score and with the music and just kind of stripping it back and utilising themes. So again, the soundscape and the music is quite an imperative storytelling device in this production.
When I was a kid, in the school holidays, they'd have the midday movie, and I really liked the Abominable Snowman movies. But I also really loved Scott of the Antarctic, which I think was made in 1948 with John Mills. And the great British composer Vaughan Williams wrote the score for that, and he turned it into a symphony. And I thought, well, I better not listen to that. But I did listen to a lot of music that makes me feel cold. Sibelius and Shostakovich, Fairbairn, and the actual score is all written for string ensemble. It's trying to create that Antarctica of the mind, I guess. But the wonderful thing is that for the backing tracks for Marilyn's operatic excerpts, we got the Conservatorium Orchestra to play, which is thrilling, you know. Like, usually you never have a budget for that, to actually use a real orchestra, and that's a really exciting aspect of the production. But I just want to say briefly that, like, Marilyn, I mean, she has meant so much to me over the years. Like, really one of our greatest sopranos of all time. And in the 70s and 80s, she championed new Australian music. And she's a national treasure. And just being able to work with her up close has been incredible, and she's just so nice.
I think we're lucky to have a lot of living legends and treasures on the stage here tonight. David, do you want to share quickly how you've used lighting to help build the world of the play?
I'll keep it very simple. As we've said, it's in scale operatic to incredibly domestic. And it's a celebration of the imagination. And in some ways, if the lighting works, your imaginations are what does the work if we succeed.
Okay, I think you've got a pretty good sense of the form and the style and the story of the play. We might open it up to the floor now. Is there anyone who has a question for any of our creative team here? You don't yet? I will be Oprah. Okay, go ahead. Excellent. Does anyone want to answer that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, isn't it? I think one of the things that I was thinking along similar lines, like, oh my God, is it going to be depressing for all of these old people to come and see all of these other old people talking about or being demented or whatever? The thing is, the play, it's so human, it's so loving of humanity. And it's also, as was mentioned, it's incredibly funny. It's got some really wonderful humour that sort of counterbalances all of that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful, complex. It's a very complex story as well, which will require you to pay attention and, as has been mentioned, you know, your imaginations to fill the space, so to speak. But we are, yes, we're all of an age, and I think it would be fantastic for young people to come, and I'm sure there will be, but it's going to be fantastic for you as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you go.
I actually think it's a transition. I think we have something to look forward to, and if we think that way, it may happen. I've just come back from Egypt a few months ago, and the way the Egyptians, ancient Egyptians, thought about the duat and where we're going, that it was very important to them. The whole, they didn't see it as a death. Oh, we're not going towards a death. We're going towards a transition. And that, I think, is hopeful. And the studies that are being done on consciousness at the moment, especially by a man called Rupert Sheldrake, are really quite evidence-based, telling us that the consciousness survives after the death of the body. And there are lots of instances where that has been, well, I won't say proven, but it certainly holds a lot of weight. And I wasn't being, hang on. I wasn't being coy about my age. I'm 75. I just couldn't think of what age I would like to be.
I was just going to say that is a relief. But also going back to the beginnings of things for many actors, singers and so on, I'd just like to pay a very short tribute to my family. My mother, at the age of 11, was the youngest person outside England at the time to get her associate from the London College of Music. And for a little girl from Kyogle, that was really, really something. So she never could do anything much with it because there were no paths for performers, or very few paths in those days. So she actually went nowhere, but she had my brother and me taught almost everything. She herself taught me piano from the age of 4 or 5. The age of 6 or 7, I had elocution lessons, and from 8 till 10, I had a wonderful training in classical ballet from Helene Kosova, who was one of the leftover ballerinas when they were marooned in Australia at the, what was it, must have been the Second World War or something. I'm getting confused, it's so long ago. And then my aunt had me join a choir for 2 years, which I just loved, the age of 10 or 11. Then I was taught piano by advanced students from the con, and then went Conservatorium in Sydney, then went there myself. I took up singing merely because you didn't have to buy an instrument. And I thought, well, I'm damned if I'm going to buy a clarinet or a saxophone or something or other, or a violin. I just want to do the course. I didn't have any further ambitions. I found that piano was very difficult to sort of make a career in. You had to travel everywhere. I fondly thought that singing would be easier. You still have to travel everywhere.
Your elocution lessons still show, Marilyn. Yes.
So it was a wonderful family devotion to a young person, which we could all perhaps learn from. And as grandparents and great-grandparents, we can do something about that. Thank you.
But just back to your question about performing to older people, I think it is a dilemma in the sense that live theatre needs to attract a younger generation. And I think that's really, really vital for its survival. And I think probably every major theatre company in Australia is very much preoccupied with that problem. And but I think also this play does have a message for younger people too, very much. It's not always about ageing. It's about a collection of people that have come together with totally different backgrounds and how they clash as well, how they get on together, and how they resolve things or how they don't resolve things. But essentially, I do think, I was in the previous production I was in some months ago, which was Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead, an adaptation from that wonderful book with the Belvoir Theatre Company, and that was for a young audience. And we had, a younger audience. And we did have an excellent cross-section of people there, but I think it is a preoccupation that every major theatre company has right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would emphasise it is absolutely an intergenerational play, and I think these guys have all raised really important points. I don't think, death and dying is something that can come to any of us at any time. That's part of the fragility of life. And really the play is about dignity in life and dignity regardless of the circumstances that you're in. So I would strongly encourage you to bring your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your family with you to really understand that message. I think that's what it's about as well. Heather?
Just taking your lead on that as well, the piece is really like a memento mori, which was an art form there, often include, candles running out of wax and skulls and what have you, objects in these still life paintings that would remind us of our shared mortality and the great equalizer of our mortality, not in any kind of dour or morbid way, but rather in a way to say, none of us know how many days we have. So rather than being sad about that, it's about embracing, these paintings were there to remind us to embrace and appreciate and be grateful for every single day that we have. So even if it just stops and asks you to think on that day that you come to see the play, what are 3 things that you're grateful for in the here and now, in that moment, and remind us of how precious our lives are and how fleeting they are, not only as individuals, but also as a species as well. We're living in the age of extinction, and there's a particularly loaded line that William has later on in the piece that opens the piece out, that it's not only about our individual mortality, but our mortality as a species as well, and how much we need to treasure not only each day that we have, but also the resources that we need to take care of so that we can continue enjoying more days.
Absolutely. It's a particularly poignant play as we watch our own Antarctica and Arctic melt much faster than we would like it to. On that cheery note, yes, we have a question at the back.
There are different costumes. So we do start off in a very historically semi-accurate. Obviously, we're using have remade things in a certain way, but we've referenced the actual expedition and what they actually wore, and that is the start of the journey and how you see the explorers to start with. And then they do transition into more contemporary clothing. So you sort of see this this interconnection between the two worlds in individuals' clothing. It's very clear. It mainly goes forwards, but it's very clear in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, so the costumes help set where you are at any given point in time. The costumes are a really strong indicator. I always find it remarkable that Scott and similar explorers to the Antarctic and the Arctic at the time just wore their woolly jumpers, which is a bit horrible. Any other questions? Yes. So the question, that's fine. The question is, what's the link between the Dylan Thomas poem, Rage Against the Dying of the Light, which has a very an undertone of anger or rage to it, and the operatic music, and the link between those and the metaphoric kind of context for those things, yes? Okay, doing my job, okay. Heather.
In terms of the poem, for starters, I'd just say that the poem, this isn't a stage adaptation of the poem, so and I don't think was even the starting place for the writing. The starting place for the writing was very much, first of all, it was actually a series of short plays that Patricia developed, one of which did deal with aged care and also memory care. And then while developing this suite of short plays that was actually for a youth theatre ensemble, so there's an interesting intergenerational thing going on there, she found the Ralph Fiennes book that is dramaturgically very much mapping out the journey of the Antarctic expedition in two parts, the hope and then the failure. And so those things came together to essentially crystallize in her mind and gift us this wonderful play that we have to work with. And in terms of the interpretation of the poem, I mean, that's the glorious thing about poetry, isn't it? You can absolutely read the violence and the aggression in it, but also you can read resilience in there, and you can see rage. To look at some other synonyms is more about, fighting and keeping on, and resilience. As I said, it doesn't need to be the anger-based rage. It can, seizing the day approach. And then in terms of the song, I'm interested to hear Alan's thoughts on that.
I know John Cale's work. I'm actually not familiar with that setting. But anyway, look, the opera connection is mainly a character thing. And Maria, the character, I don't think you actually I don't think anyone knows her name. But she's like a Serbian refugee who came to Melbourne in the 60s. And she's gone back to Europe and she uses opera excerpts to help her go there. But there is an energy in the play from one of the characters called, who's the role of Evans, and he is, his background is as a unionist and a full-on communist. And he uses the word rage quite a lot. And in a sense, I reckon he embodies that element of the Dylan Thomas poem. And his, as his mind goes, it's also his faith in all those ideals is disappearing at the same time.
Also, in regards to opera, the piece is really quite surreal in how it juxtaposes and smashes together the fantastical with the pedestrian, the domestic. I mean, that is surrealism by definition. And so we've got the domestic side down, but in looking at the fantastical, what is the grandest and most fantastical music we could think of? It's the symphonic forces. So in terms of the journey of the music, similar to the journey of the costume and the set and other elements and the journeys of the characters, we get to go from this wonderful, grandiose, fantastical imaginary world, which opera communicates so wonderfully in the space, down to something that's really stripped back in comparison.
Yeah, I think we have a very contemporary version of rage, or a contemporary understanding of rage. We think of road rage and violence and aggression, but I think there's a lot more subtlety in terms of what rage means in this play, and what I can assure you as a middle-aged woman, I have a lot of rage, but it doesn't necessarily manifest physically all the time. It might help the audience a little bit, maybe actors, if some of you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about maybe the challenges of having to perform essentially two different characters in two different time frames, or in two different spaces, two different realities. What are the challenges of playing essentially the same or two different characters in different time frames? Does anyone like to answer that one?
It's hard to make a logical line.
It is, yes.
Because you're not. Most plays, you're playing a character has an arc. Something happens to that character, and he lands up in another position, as we all do in life. This will change. This afternoon, sitting here, we have all changed in the space of an hour. These characters seem to be suspended. They don't seem to be moving on, or certainly some of the characters. I play, as Alan says, the unionist, Evans, who loses his belief in ideals and what the union movement used to mean. And I have some knowledge of that. So it is difficult. It's actually quite exhausting. I think all of us as actors are finding this a very exhausting play, which is surprising. I thought it was going to be a doddle. But I feel every night I want to go home and draw a bath and just soak the bones. But it takes too long to draw the bath, so I just grab a shower.
It might also help, Andrew, would you like to explain, because some of the characters aren't across two different time frames. One of them is in reality that you play, and the other is a more of a symbolical, metaphorical kind of figure. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that's like and what those two things represent?
Yeah, I play 4 characters. One is very theatrical, is almost a projection of a psychological state of one of the characters, and that's really, I've enjoyed exploring the theatricality of playing that role. He's thought of by this character as a man-beast, a creature, and so I've really thought a lot about that. How do you manifest that? So I'm really enjoying the opportunity of trying to manifest the creature, the man beast. So that's quite a physical requirement. The other one is very domestic, someone coming to visit, and it's as simple as that, going to visit. And I think it's really about just trying to switch into the simplicity of that, and you drop away all theatricality and just play it as honestly as you can. So my mum's up in aged care up in Gympie, so I know what it is to visit. I know what it is to walk in and you find them and you have a chat. So it's very natural. So I'm really enjoying. I have a number of very small scenes, and then the most glorious scenes I've ever played. I just adore walking in. I have an amazing scene with Kristen, which is just a joy to do, and an amazing couple of scenes with Bruce. And it's been a real joy to play those short scenes. And I also play the role of an orderly who's not even listed in as a character, and we've named him Hamish. And Hamish will come on, and if any of the actors get lost, I just walk on and guide them off, really. So I'm there to try and keep some order on the stage, and or move some furniture or do something like that. So, yeah, it's surprisingly easy to play those roles. I just do my hair differently.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you're going to get opera, drama, comedy, and watching some of the finest actors in the country play some of the most challenging roles on stage, which I think is this quadruple threat. We have a few minutes left if anyone has any. Yes. Does anyone have any tips for dementia prevention? That was the question. Keep enjoying life, absolutely. Apparently crosswords and things are important, but I think being active and enjoying life. And I would imagine for all of you too that performing and continuing to work in your craft is really part of the joy of keeping yourself active and enjoying what you're doing.
I can say yes it is, but obviously one of the things that gets harder and harder is learning lines. It does, you know. I mean, I was speaking to a friend of mine this morning who's doing a one-man show that he wrote a few years ago, and he's about to start performing it again, and he said, you know what, nobody knows just how many hours you put into learning the bloody stuff. And it, you know, look, we all have different techniques, but I know when I first started acting when I was 18, I could learn pretty much everybody's roles in whatever scene I was in. If somebody made a mistake, I knew how to, you know, twist the language around and help them in. Now it's like, I know the word is there somewhere.
Yeah, but we have an advantage with this play. We can blame the play.
You can. Andrew, what did you want to say?
As I said before, I have a number of small roles. One of the great things is for sitting back and watching some amazing actors on this stage. I've got to say, you're in for a treat. Jennifer Flowers, when I was coming through university, was a star in Brisbane. And I've got to say, she's a star in this play. And I sit here, marvelling at Jennifer, marvelling at Bruce, who's an icon, Stephen, Marilyn. When Marilyn sings, it just hits me deeply. And I've always known William Zappa. I've always read his reviews from the plays in Melbourne. And you're in for a treat. These guys are so talented, and they still got it, and it's there.
Have you paid him to say that?
No. And yeah, I just want to say how exciting it is to watch the work of these very fine, experienced Australian actors.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, we are very privileged to have all of these fabulous actors on stage. We have time for maybe one? Yes, in the middle. Good question. You don't want to reveal. You might have to come and.
Yeah.
That's the mystery to solve. Any other final questions? Yes. Sorry, we might squeeze you in. 1 moment.
Yep. So were any of the factual elements of Scott's actual expedition, the photos, the diaries used in the play?
The walls of our rehearsal room are clad with the historical photos. There's the diary entries as well. The book by Ralph Fiennes that I mentioned too. It's been integral. But then the key as well has been not to get too swept up in that wonderful, tragic expedition that they went on, because it's only one half of the piece, and so. It was a memory exercise in itself to try to remember, to curb our enthusiasm sometimes and be like, oh, that's right, we're not staging a historical reenactment of the expedition. The expedition is a metaphor for what's actually going on. So in rehearsals, we spent a lot of time not only reflecting on the journey and learning about the journey that Scott and his team went on, but also trying to work out what the inner logic, like where the characters actually are, what their thoughts are about themselves, about each other, who these characters are, even what they're called, because they're only called in the script by the name of the adventurers, but who are these people really? So we had to keep on curbing our enthusiasm from doing this historical reenactment to then think about the domestic side of the story as well.
I will say that you are going to see some kind of movement recreation, though, of the trek through the Antarctic. Just really quickly, Joe, I neglected to add you in. Joe is the movement director. Can you explain a little bit about how you used movement, I know quite symbolically, to help create the sense of the journey and the sense of the trek?
Thanks. So, and this is one element that will draw on historic and realistic experiences of the Antarctic. And so basically we explored ways to imagine the Antarctic landscape and use the photography to meld those things together in an imaginative response. And there's exploration of the way the explorers were actually carrying all their materials behind them on a sled, and we've kind of taken that in an imaginative version. So, and I don't want to give too much away. But so the process was very kind of collaborative and looking at the experience of the difficulty of the actual journey and how to translate that in a theatrical way. And also my job is to make sure that that's sustainable across all the performances, so that we can kind of create this exciting vision of the difficulty of the journey, and then all of the actors are able to safely do that in a repetitive way. So that's a little sample of the journey.
No, we don't want anyone falling over. Did you want to have a final quick question?
Very exciting. I know some of them, I don't know others, and we've just been on an adventure like a trek to the pole ourselves, you know. And I've enjoyed the language, I've enjoyed the ins and outs of the storytelling, which is quite complicated, but very satisfying to do. And I think we're now starting our tech, and it's onwards and upwards.
Thank you. We might leave it there. Would you please thank the cast and creatives of Do Not Go Gentle? And thank you for joining us tonight, coming out on a Tuesday night. Enjoy your evening. Thank you very much.